recording for the millions watching online. All right, I was going to say brief introduction, but Coach Schmidt prepared quite a detailed introduction of Coach Weess. So I'm going to go through some of this, and hopefully he'll still have something to talk about. This is pretty extensive. It's pretty impressive. So Pete Weess was born and raised in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and attended La Crosse Central High School. Sorry, Coach Gleason, where he participated in football and wrestling. He played on both offensive and defensive line in football and wrestled heavyweight while weighing about 205 pounds. Coach Schmidt had to put the wrestling stuff in there for sure. After graduation, Weess enlisted in the Navy, where he spent the next 6 years, mostly in the state of Washington and on the Pacific island of Guam. While in Guam, he met a priest who taught him all about the sport of soccer, a game that soldiers would play on a regular basis almost every Saturday. After serving a 6-year stint in the Navy, Weess returned home and enrolled at UW-La Crosse and earned degrees in biology and broadfield science. By that time, he was married to Ann, his high school sweetheart, with one child, Brian, and another, Nate, on the way. Ann was working as a nurse after receiving a degree from Western Tech in La Crosse. Pete was hired to teach science in Deltona, Florida, where he coached football in the fall and soccer in the winter. While at Deltona, Coach Weess was named Conference and Section Coach of the Year. After 6 years, Coach Weess was hired to teach science and serve as the head soccer coach at Winona High School. Weess served as the head boys coach from 1995 until 2010. In 2011, Coach Weess served as the head coach for both boys and girls soccer program. And in 2012, Pete's son Nate took over the boys program, and Weess served as the girls coach for the next 2 seasons. Coach Weess took a short sabbatical from coaching, but came back as the head boys coach when Nate was hired to teach middle school math and coach soccer in Red Wing. The boys soccer program has had considerable success under Weess, with winning percentage just over 65% and only 2 losing seasons in 25 years. Coach Weess was named the Big Nine in Section 1 Coach of the Year, Soccer Coach of the Year in 2000. All 3 of Coach Weiss's sons played soccer in high school. Brian was an outstanding goalie and went on to play soccer at UW Parkside. Nate played soccer and served as a place kicker on the Winona High football team, also kicking for the Rough Riders for a couple years. Cameron had a stellar career at Winona High as a midfielder and also played soccer at UW-Platteville, where he was an academic all-region selection. Brian currently works as a manager of Wind Turbine Farm in Maine. Cameron is a physician's assistant at an orthopedic clinic in the Chicago area. As mentioned earlier, Nate is teaching and coaching soccer in Red Wing. That is your life.
There it is. Wow, that's kind of neat to see your life flashed in front of you. And I've had a connection to sports, probably going back to 1969 when I played junior high basketball and football. I remember those days so well. Those are the days that I really go back to today, and I want to carry that through to where I'm at right now. Okay, we've got 4 young people here, and a little bit older. What I want you to do, just real quick, think about why you started. Why did you get involved in sports? I'm pretty sure it's not to win championships. I'm pretty sure it's not to achieve any particular goals. When you first stepped out on the track or stepped out on a field or court, it wasn't to do anything in particular. And then you got into it because it was fun. When I looked at a survey by Parents Magazine, nearly every kid that's ever been surveyed about sports, the number one reason is fun. At some point in our careers, we are challenged to have fun, to continue having fun. I wrote some things down because otherwise I just ad lib and I don't know what I'm saying after that. And I thought about this, having fun. Part of having fun is overcoming obstacles for something you love. It isn't just a part of sports, it's a part of life as well. We start to progress in sports, and at some point we get challenged. And that's when we kind of come to a crossroads. We get so good at our sport that it isn't just about fun anymore. And I'm not talking about us. I'm talking about, first off, your parents. all of our parents, we have that. Your parents shift. As you get better in a sport, your parents shift. They go from, wow, this is fun. They sit on the sidelines and that's my son, that's my daughter. Oh, look at what she just did. I still remember a band concert with my son, Cameron. And it was right as the concert was about to get started. Cameron was a tuba player, and you can help me with, he was warming up the bass section. So he's warming up the bass section. My wife is sitting next to me. She elbows me. He's doing a solo. So it changes. It all changes in the eyes of the parents. They go from you just being out there, looking at your socks falling down. Just, oh, this is so much fun. I can't wait. Afterwards, you go over to McDonald's or wherever you go over and get an ice cream. And that's really fun. But then you get better at it. And then the parents shift what they think should be. And then, all of a sudden, it's not about having fun. All of a sudden, it's about dad or mom saying, we need to get you better. You look like you're having a lot of fun. This looks like your sport of choice. Let's do something more. Hopefully it's dad training you, because you can deal with him. It's just that time. When it's mom, she's got a schedule. And all of a sudden it's all changed. And you get to a point where you've gotten to this kind of this bisection or trisection of the road. You can say, okay, I'm just going to continue to have fun. And that kind of becomes nearly impossible. Just to have fun, because you get left behind. Maybe you're not a starter anymore. Maybe you're not even on the varsity. Maybe you're on the JV. And your friends moved up. Oh, what happened? All of a sudden you're looking at this sport that used to be just so much fun because all you had to do was tie your shoes right and get on the field. To all of a sudden, now it's really serious. And now you've got this old guy or older woman that's coaching you. And the coach says, you know what? You got to work harder. You got to do more. You got to get to a point where you're excelling, because that's the only satisfaction you'll get. They're right in some ways, but are they always right? There's a point where you get there and you say, man, I don't know if I love it anymore. And that's devastating. When you fall out of love for your sport, it's like life ended for that moment. It could be just for you had one bad night and the coach is yelling at you and you're injured and you don't want to go on. And if that hasn't happened to you, maybe you haven't done it, you haven't worked hard enough yet. You haven't put yourself out there, you haven't exposed yourself enough. But that's the point where you can really fall in love with your sport. You can say, I'm going to work harder. I'm going to try to achieve more. I'm going to ignore my goals, knowing that just someday I'll get there. When the time is right, I'll get to those goals. I'm not going to strive for goals anymore. I'm not going to work only for my personal best. I'm not going to work for the winning of the game ball or the MVP or the all conference. I'm just going to reach those goals someday. I'm not going to set a timeline. I'm going to work hard, because if I work harder, I'm going to get a little bit more satisfied. It might not be that I'm on the varsity. It may be that in soccer, it may be that you can achieve so simple as scoring a goal or getting an assist. In track, you may get your personal best. In other sports, you're going to achieve something little, and that's all it takes to bring that love back again, is to just have some sort of achievement. You may have cheered up a teammate. That may be enough. And so what I'm trying to say is that we will see those obstacles. Sports are mentally, they're physically, and they're spiritually challenging. If we're doing things at a higher level every time, we'll get to that point where maybe the fun isn't what it used to be. But then you have to go back to when you started. It was just fun to step on the field. And now, in order to step on the field, I have to work a little bit harder. So, I guess when I think back on my years, and it's a lot of years, not as many as some other people in this room, but I think they'd echo the same thing. When I look back on my years, it was fun because I tried my hardest, I gave it my best, and I kept that love for my sport. And there were times when I was just ready. I'm done. I don't want anything to do with it. But then I found out that if I do the little things, the little achievements. I just went through a losing season as a soccer coach. I still had a lot of fun because the reason I started coaching was to watch the students. I want to share a little story. The soccer team 2 years ago, we were in Albert Lee. It was just terribly hot that day. And it was one of those days in the fall where all of a sudden it gets really hot. And the varsity guys said, Coach, I can't stand the heat. I don't want to just melt before I even get to the game. So they asked if they could go on the bus. I said, yeah, go ahead and get on the bus. They went on the bus. It was air conditioned. They got on there for a little while. And I went on the bus, and I asked, there were about a dozen guys there, and I said, why do you guys play soccer? And they started with, I just want to beat. Who did they want to beat, Drew? What's the one team that the soccer players want to beat? Rochester Lourdes. That's what I just want to beat Rochester Lourdes. That was their goal. And then they got away from that really quick. One of them said, I just really love going out to eat afterwards. Another one said, I just love the bus rides, being able to just be with the guys. And that really hit me hard because I said, you know what? That's what every one of the kids that I've ever coached wanted. They just wanted those little things. And then when the big things come along, you get that much more joy out of it. So what I'm saying, I guess, is if you've lost the love, you really haven't. You just have to realign the reasons you play, going back to the reasons you played in the first place. That's what I've got today. I want questions too. I can take, you can ask me any question, it doesn't have to be related. You can ask me anything about this incredible bio that I don't really know that's me.
I have to go further.
I'm going to. I have to.
I don't think it mentioned your grandkids. Did it?
I have 3 grandkids. I've got little Kanoa. He's my oldest son, Brian, is I think a bona fide hippie. He's the one that runs a wind farm, and he's got Kanoa. Kanoa's just a little crazy kid. I love that kid. And then he's 4, and then my grandson out in Red Wing, Kellen, is 5, and then I've got little Jordy, who's 2. And Jordy plays life because he loves it. The kid has never, I saw him run smack head first into a wall and just started laughing away, and he said, that's funny. And those are the things that, now I kind of turned away from sports a little bit, and now that's the next, it's the next step in life.
I got a question.
Yeah.
As an athlete, did you ever have an injury that you had to try to come back from and fight through? And how difficult was that? Or in your athletes that you coach?
Well,
do you have any input for somebody who might have been injured?
Yeah.
And is trying to work their way through it?
The injury is one of those times when you just go, I don't love sports anymore. But for myself, my sophomore year, we had 3-year high schools when I was in high school. My sophomore year, I started in football, and then coming into my junior year, I had big expectations for myself, and I injured my ankle. It was a really bad ankle sprain. It took a lot just to get away from it. Back then, we didn't have Bill Jacobs explaining exactly what's wrong with my ankle.
In big words.
It was, yeah, in big words. We had the coach. His big words were, I think if we just spit on it and throw some tape on there, you'll be fine. Pretty much it. I think that's about it, right? You'll be good. And then they questioned whether you're an athlete or not if you weren't able to get back from an ankle sprain in a week. But I got past any bets. I ended up playing. I played against Lacrosse Logan, and my dad was Lacrosse Logan's principal, and they were our rival in school. and I made a tackle and darn near a safety. And my dad always stood on the corner of that corner of the field. I looked up at him. I just gave him this. The next day, he had a party at our house with all the Logan faculty, and they all brought a Logan pennant. My room got plastered with Logan pennants because they won.
How long were you out for?
I was out for almost a whole season. That was the last game.
Was it hard? Yeah,
Extremely difficult. But what I did, I found a new role. For time being, I found a new role. And that was getting up and down the sideline, encouraging my teammates, etc. I've had other players, Bryce Beckman, really one of my best soccer players, kind of fast. And as a sophomore, he blew out his knee. His mom was horrified, and he blew out his knee, and it took him well into his junior year before he could really run the way he used to. And, but Bryce ended up running for, who did he run for? I can't remember.
St. Thomas.
Yeah, he ended up running for St. Thomas. And years later, I was refereeing soccer over in Rochester, and he was playing soccer again. And I said to him, why didn't you play college soccer? He said, I just didn't love it then, but now that I'm playing in the men's league, he said, I love it, the pressure's off. So I said, what was it? How does this relate to some part in your life? He said, when I first started playing soccer, it's what it was like, and that's what I was referring to. He found that love when he first joined the sport. And that's there. It just has to be found.
This is a dumb question, but why do you want to win? I read a book, a whole book on why do you want to win? It starts as fun, and then you want to win. Anyway, why do you want to win? Anybody else? How many do you want to win for your team? How many do you want to win for your focus? How many do you want to win for Winona House? How many do you want to win for the community? How many do you want to win to show your little siblings that you can do it? So there's a lot of reasons why you want to win, but we always have to keep in mind it has to be fun. 70% of youth sports quit before the age of 15. Just think how many stars are in this 70% who will never ever reach their potential because they've lost fun.
Yeah. I've read that in so many different ways too. We always read about cuts in sports. What we're cutting is maybe a future star. We're cutting that opportunity for a kid to love the game, which then that breeds it breeds itself. The most successful teams I've coached, there was a continuity. Not well beyond the game. Kids love, I think they love the time they spend with each other. They weren't necessarily friends away from the sport, but they love the time they spend with each other.
Again, going back to court, you used to have the senior spotlights in the game where they asked seniors what was most important. I can remember a couple of them. The band trip.
Yep.
Or kids that take the bus rides. So there's a lot more than just, the idea of maybe more than the for cross country, you just get going to one minute. So if you're going to need a 500 foot, which is not unusual, you can only use one winner. If you measure winning, that's the most important thing. There's a lot more important than just the winning.
I've coached my share of all-state, all-conference kids. I don't think those kids would ever say the most fun of the sport and the most enjoyable moments in their sport was being named all-state or all-conference. I think that's just it's a certification that you made it to a certain point. They don't put as much weight into it as certainly parents and coaches. But those kids that, almost without exception, those kids that excelled in those sports always seem to have a smile and always seem to have fun. There were times when they didn't have a good game and they just kind of said, you know, this is not for me today. I'll share another story with you. One of the hardest games I ever coached, we were far superior to the other team. We were just so much better. We were at Albert Lee. It was on a Saturday. The night before, my star player, really truly the best player, he was like the glue of the whole team. He just kind of made the whole team work. He broke up with his girlfriend. So at halftime, I'm kind of chewing everybody out because they were playing just awful. And I'm just chewing on people. And then one of them said, and I said to him, I said, what is going on with you? Are you sick or injured or what? And he just sat there shaking his head. And one of the kids said, well, he just broke up with his girlfriend. So now I was like feeling terrible. And then a kid is standing to my right, and I looked at him. It's one of our monk players. And he's eating a pizza. And here it is, he's got 2 slices of pizza. I looked at him, I said, what are you doing? I was hungry. And I just said, okay. And we all laughed about it. And even the kid that had broken up with his girlfriend laughed about it. I said, well, let's just play the second half. We'll go get pizza on our way out of town. And that was it. And the kids said, if I had reacted any differently, they wouldn't have been able to play the second half. I don't want the story to be about what happened in the second half. They just had fun. It instantly went back to that. It's part of what I was thinking about when I was going to talk today. Things like that. I remember all those stories from all those. When I'm retired, I'll just sit somewhere at McDonald's maybe and just tell people the stories of sports that I remember. And you'll have those too. And you probably already have a lot of them.
20 years from now, you will forget the individual win, but you will remember your teammates. You remember the fun.
Yep.
Yep.
For sure. My son's been in his he's in his 4th wedding this spring. That's all his college roommates that were all soccer players. They had a lot of success, but the success was they only had one goal that their senior year. They had their only goal was to have the highest grade point average, off-campus grade point average in the country. And they did. They had a 4.0. So, yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the Wiss life going on with
With my kids, we started with a simple rule. When we left the field, we didn't talk about the game. Because I felt like if we brought that home with us, it would cause them to have an undue pressure. I had to do some things differently. I talked to my assistant coaches about the starting lineup and making sure that I took care of my kids the right way and not showed preferential treatment. None of them were on the varsity as a freshman. That was going to be the rule, and that might have been unfair to them a little bit, but it helped protect them. Tremendous joy from coaching them. At the same time, I wasn't able to fully enjoy it like some parents would. But then, part of the reason I took my hiatus from coaching was to watch my son Cameron play college soccer. It was so fun to just be able to go there. And of course, the parents found out quickly I was a high school coach. They wanted to talk to me about the coach, the college coach. They wanted to talk to me about the game. Shouldn't they do? I said, you know what? I'm just sitting here watching. My wife and I went to his first college game. It was in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. And we kind of came around, and the field was down more in like a pit. And as we're coming around, my wife said, there he is. And that kind of hit me like, yeah, that's why we're doing this. And when we sat down, the team captain, a senior, came running over. He said, hey, Cameron's doing great. We love him. And I didn't care whether he played or not that day, but I saw the opportunity to watch my son interact with a new set of friends. And that was more gratifying than all the years of coaching my kids. No question. You can ask later in the day. Yeah.
So you said that you learned like playing soccer when you were in the Navy. So how exactly did that work?
He couldn't put it in here, but when I was in the Navy they have recreation sports. So they run a football season, which I played football. And then we have a soccer season, but it was a league. Several military entities, like I was Naval Air Station 1. We had a team. And our coach was the priest that came on campus. I learned new swear words from that priest. He was an Irish priest. He was just great. But he taught us the game, and certainly it wasn't at a very high level then. And from that point on, I kind of fell in love with soccer. It was a different type of sport. It kind of combined all the things I like to do. And so I played for 3 years there on Guam, nearly year-round. Then when I got out, I came back and I played Washington State first. I played some soccer there, same thing, rec league. And then I ended up playing in men's league out of lacrosse. And that's kind of, it's different. I started late, but kind of the same route many of the players took. Just started playing and built more and more. Then I started, when I got serious about it as a coach, I started meeting the right people that really knew the game. I had the opportunity to coach side by side with Tadio, who was at the time the Brazilian U19 national team coach. I learned a lot from him. I learned a lot from the Irish national team coach when they were here for the World Cup. So I just learned. I admitted that I knew nothing about coaching the sport, and then I learned from so many people. Mike Menard, who is one of my favorite people in the world. He's in a wheelchair. He's bound for his life. He was a freshman in college, leading the country in scoring, and fell off of Belgium and put him in a wheelchair for life. And I learned so much from Mike. I learned more from Mike about life than I did about soccer. Mike said, I only have one wish in life. So what's that, Mike? He said, I just wish I could walk one more time so I could kick your butt. That's the way he approached life. He was so much fun, and still is. I still argue with him all the time. Yep.
Sports in high school,
Well, sure, because there's no difference between in the Navy we had drill sergeants, but we had recruit commanders, and they resembled my high school coaches. So for one, I learned how to, if you don't do this, it's not a good thing. But yeah, certainly that physically, I think entering the military after being in a sport is an easier transition physically, and the discipline that comes with it. So I certainly think that's a route that is probably more favorable.
Just one little quick story. You love your sport now. You may fall out of love with it. Just read a story about a young lady who was a phenom in high school. In her junior year, she started not liking to run anymore. By the time she was a senior, she quit. She went off to college, got engineering banking, ended up working at a bank, and they had a little challenge of going out and running. At the age of 24, she decided to go back to college. She went to a Iowa school. She's the #1 runner in Iowa. She found love again. So you may have it, you may lose it. Something may spark it, you may lose that. You'll never closing yours?
I think if you've ever had a love for any sport, and you kind of maybe fall out of love or at least temporarily walk away from it, it's possible to find the love for another sport. It happens all the time, especially going from high school to adult. One of my goalkeepers, Ryan Block, went from high school goalkeeper to then he played for the Rough Riders in football. And I mean, it was just a transition he decided to make. I tried to be a runner. That didn't work. It's too big. But that happens all the time. That's why adult men's league, those guys sometimes take it so serious because it's for the first time they're finding love for a new sport. Coach Gleason on Wednesday nights is kind of fun to watch. We'll let me know. So is this the core? This is the core. Good job. You'll be better people because of it. Listening to old people, sometimes you learn something. You just got to sort through it.
And the big thing is apply this to your life.
Yep.
How is this going to affect you?
All right.
20 years from now, you're going to say to your kids, I remember this old guy standing up in front. And he told me this. And you know what? It happened.
All right, let's thank Coach Weess.
Thanks for the opportunity. It's fun to talk. I've been known to talk once in a while.